For so many adults with ADHD, just getting through the day can feel like you're fighting this invisible current that nobody else seems to feel. And it can be really isolating. But what if a real lifeline could be found in a place we're all familiar with? Today, we're jumping into some incredible research that looks at how thousands of people are finding their tribe and a seriously powerful support system inside ADHD Facebook groups. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into the core challenges of being an adult with ADHD. Then we'll look at the research that asked, hey, can these online groups actually make a difference? From there, we'll break down the three main types of support people are finding: informational, emotional, and social. And we'll wrap it all up with a really powerful conclusion about what these online communities truly are. All right, first things first, the ADHD challenge. To really get why these online groups matter so much, we have to start with what it's actually like to live with adult ADHD. And for a lot of people, a good way to describe it is the lone wolf experience. I mean, this image kind of says it all, doesn't it? That internal storm of thoughts, tasks, and feelings just swirling around all at once. It's a reality that's just so hard to explain to people who don't live it. And that often leads to this deep feeling of being totally on your own. The research really breaks down these challenges into three big areas. On a functional level, there are the day-to-day struggles at work, at school, and in social settings. Emotionally, that can create this vicious cycle of shame and self-blame. And socially, well, all of that can add up to some pretty intense loneliness. It all paints a picture of a real, urgent need for support. So this brings us to the big question behind the research. In a world where we're all connected online, could a digital space, like a simple Facebook group, actually be a real lifeline for people? Could it fill that support gap? And that's exactly the gap that researchers Michael Esser and Tali Gazet noticed. They saw that, we know a lot about ADHD, and we know a lot about online groups in general, but nobody had really taken a close look at the specific world of these huge, active ADHD communities on Facebook. So their study went right to the source. They sat down for these deep dive interviews with 20 adults who were active in these groups, just to hear about their real lived experiences. They wanted to know, what kind of support are people really finding here? And it turns out it boils down to three incredibly powerful categories. And here they are. What they discovered is that this online support system is basically built on three core pillars: informational, emotional, and social. So let's break down each one, starting with that first one, information. Okay, so that first pillar is all about informational support. But we're not talking about just reading some dry textbook definition. Oh no, the knowledge being shared here is way more personal and way more practical than that. What's so amazing here is that it's a two-way street. People aren't just scrolling and reading, they're actively asking questions about their specific struggles and getting back these practical, field-tested strategies from other people who have actually been there and done that. Just think about it. It's like a massive, constantly updated encyclopedia of lived experience. You need a tip for tackling that pile of paperwork you've been avoiding? Chances are someone in that group has a hack for it. And having that collective knowledge base gives you this incredible sense of security. You're never really starting from zero. I mean, this quote from one of the participants just says it all, right? If not for social media, all the knowledge, I am living in a golden age. Imagine struggling for decades without answers, and then suddenly having all this peer-to-peer wisdom at your fingertips. It's totally transformative. Now, when you start sharing information and tips like that, it naturally builds into something even deeper. And that brings us to our second pillar, emotional support. So what does that really look like? Well, it starts with identification, that me too moment when you see your own struggle in someone else's story. That leads to a feeling of acceptance, which then directly tackles that deep sense of loneliness we talked about. And this is so, so important. These groups become these safe spaces where people can finally let out all the frustration and exhaustion without being judged. And when you can do that, you start to break down that heavy wall of shame and self-blame that often comes with having ADHD. Just listen to the power in this quote. To be in a place where you can say, there are days when I'm completely broken, and have a whole chorus of people respond with, we get it, we've been there, it will pass. Wow, that is an unbelievable form of support. Which brings us to our third and honestly maybe the most profound pillar of all. Because when you combine that shared knowledge with real emotional validation, you get the foundation for genuine social support. You get a real community. And this is built on a few key things. It's about feeling like you belong, sure, but it's also about the act of helping other people,
actively participating, and maybe most importantly, the normalization of the whole ADHD experience.
And this part is a total game changer. See, when you share a tip that helps someone else, you feel more capable yourself. And when you read a post that describes your weirdest quirk to a T, it suddenly becomes normal. You stop thinking, what's wrong with me? And you start thinking, oh, this is just an us thing. You're not an outsider anymore.
And here it is. This quote just nails the final destination of that whole journey. It's the huge identity shift from feeling like a lone wolf all by yourself to finally being part of a tribe. So after all that, what's the big takeaway here? Well, the researchers reached a really powerful conclusion about what these online groups actually are. Here's the bottom line. We can't just dismiss these as simple online forums. They are complex, multi-layered support networks that seamlessly weave together information, emotion, and true social connection into one experience. I absolutely love this phrase from the research. They describe these groups as serving as islands of belonging, normalization, and empowerment. In what can often feel like a huge, confusing ocean, these groups are safe harbors. And that leaves us with a really big question to think about. As we look to the future of mental health support, how do we recognize and even work with these organic, peer-led digital tribes? Because it seems like they're already playing an absolutely vital role.
All of the fascinating insights we've talked about today come from the research done by Mikkel Isser and Tali Gazit. They've really shined a light on the incredible power of community in our digital world. Thanks for tuning in.